Pit your company against others in your favorite games and compete for a prize pool donated to the charity of your choice. To participate, gather your coworkers, contribute, and enter our 15-week-long tournament. Each Saturday at noon Pacific time, your company will go head-to-head with another. At the end of the season, the winning team's charity is awarded the prize pool. Don't worry about skill. Our tournament structure means that each match will be meaningful and competitive. Join us today at CEA.gg. Esports with coworkers for charity.
Hello, everyone. Close enough on the webcam here. Welcome to today's cast. Later today, I know many of you are looking forward to the viewer games. But first and foremost, we have a lovely cast of a really cool tournament that, I only recently heard about, but it's basically the spiritual successor to After Hours Gaming League, which I know many of you are familiar with, having been in the scene for quite some time. But if you aren't, basically it's companies competing against each other as, they would with a baseball league or something like that. Except it's esports, and in this specific tournament, it is StarCraft 2. They have other games. They're planning on branching out to other games, but here today on my channel is going to be the finals between Amazon and Facebook. So Amazon being the reigning champs 2 times in a row versus Facebook, who had some nice results against teams, against players that actually did have higher MMR than them. They are capable of sniping, and apparently they say that they have a lot of Zerg players, and Amazon might be a little bit weak to that, despite being called the Amazon 12 pool. That's a little weird. But yeah, it should be a fun best of 7. I believe there are 5 players at a time, or I think 4 players at least, and then hopefully you can have more people. But basically the best of 7 is set up that we will play the first 4 games, and then if you need the ace, you need another player to come out, they'll come again, and then if you need another game, then another person gets to come out. But people can only play 2 times in the entire best of 7, so no just getting Jon Snow on your team and then winning the entire thing, as we were talking about earlier. So that kind of covers it. If you guys have any questions, we will be here to answer them, as there's no delay, which is awesome. Players trust each other quite a bit, and as you can see, I am casting with Fear Dragon. So thank you for the love, guys.
Yeah, and also I just really quickly want to note, one of the really cool things about this is that even though a lot of the players we're actually going to be seeing today are Masters or even Grandmaster League players, they are actually pretty high up there. The thing about it is that all of these guys are playing just because they belong to these companies. A lot of the teams actually are created with Gold League players or Diamond League players or Platinum, etc., like Silver League players. If you actually want to get involved or you're interested in playing, please go check this stuff out. It's a really, really awesome community. Like Zombie Grove said, successor to the AHGL. And it's actually not for prize money for the players. It's actually for charity instead.
Mm-hmm.
So the winning team gets to pick what charity a bunch of the money that's put in for the prize pool goes to.
Yeah, exactly. So that is like the coolest part. It's actually $3,000 as well. So it's not just like, I don't know, like a tiny bit of change. No, it's a ton. And they both are fighting each other to see, obviously it's for charity in general, so it's always good, but they both have their respective choices of the charity. Amazon is doing something I wasn't familiar with, but Facebook, I believe, is doing Doctors Without Borders. I just lost it on the sheet, but I will bring it up again once we're in game, once I've actually found it. But as I said, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask in chat. We are ready to go, though, with the first series of the day. You are in here, right?
Yeah, I am, in fact, in the lobby. And just while you kind of tell the players and everything that we're good to go, the 2 charities are right now, Amazon is playing for GiveWell, and like you said, Doctors Without Borders is Facebook's charity of choice.
Yeah, there you go. I knew it was... I actually don't know what the other one was. I didn't get to look into it either, but I'm assuming that they're both pretty awesome.
When I see Doctors Without Borders, I always think of that charity. You have been around for a long time, so you might remember this. Dr. Dario, aka TLO, pro player for StarCraft 2, would always raise money for Doctors Without Borders, because I think it was the Dr. Dario Doctors Without Borders thing.
That's correct. Yeah, I forgot about that, but You're bringing it back. Oh, that's right. I have to add the title, the team names to the top there. But our first game is beginning on Kairos Junction. And while we're actually waiting for this to load in, GiveWell is... Wow, this actually was not easy to... This was not an easy one to explain. American nonprofit charity assessment and effective altruism-focused organization. Primarily on the cost effectiveness of the organizations that it evaluates, rather than traditional metrics such as percentage of the organization's budget that is spent on overhead. So it sounds like it kind of is like a... It makes sure that everyone else is, like, above board, right? Like, that's what that sounds like, right?
It sounds like a great cause.
Yeah. But very cool. So, in the top left, as I get the score up here, as the orange Protoss, it is Dark Zero.
It's going to be representing Amazon, aka Alexa 12 Pool. And down here in that Facebook blue, we have the blue Zerg player. It's Frogs.
Quite the... I don't know, it's like frogs, but not quite.
You know, my favorite thing is that these guys... So first of all, they said, let's not pick blue and teal or something. I think they were set to. They said, no. That's going to be annoying for the casters to watch. Let's pick our team colors, and also colors that are associated with our company. You know, you have the Amazon orange, you have the Facebook blue. It's gonna be so easy to like watch and remember which team is which for this. I'm excited.
Yeah, that does help out quite a bit.
Better than pro players.
Yes, already, well, I'm gonna say more professional. So Dark Zero is 5.4K Protoss player here. The general setup for this best of 7 is that Amazon is the reigning champions for a reason. Like, they do have the highest MMR players by a considerable margin. It's not like, you know, 5.2 versus 5.3. Like, it's considerable, but as, you know, they're not pro gamers. Everyone has weaknesses to certain styles that can sometimes bridge, like, 600 MMR gaps. We're not just assuming that they're gonna win, right? But... yeah. As, you know, I go through every single player, you will be probably hearing higher numbers for Amazon, that's where preparation really comes into effect. In fact, Amazon, when asked the team captain about, like, the challenges they've had in this season, he did say that they basically learned how much preparation can really help in some of their previous games, previous matches, and they did a whole Swiss round robin format to actually get everyone playing everyone. So it's been quite a long season, quite a test, and, well, they are now a little more prepared, I suppose, against those who are focused diligently on defeating them, as that's what they've been prepping to do for a couple of weeks now, I want to say. But they actually finished the semis a while ago.
Yeah, it's really cool. Both of these teams have actually been playing in these, you know, the previous version of the CEA, which is the AHGL, for a long time. I used to actually be a part of the AHGL team for Amazon, so I can say, like, they've always been great about being very inclusive and, like, basically getting a lot of those internal games played. They would have intern versus full-timer show matches that they'd have, where they rent out a room and everyone goes and plays. So it's a really, really cool team. I'm actually a huge fan of just... This is where a little bit of my bias comes in, but I'm a huge fan of how involved it feels like the Amazon team is. And I hear similar things about the Facebook team, but Zombie Grub, this is a less usual opening from Dark Zero.
Yeah, we have the Void Ray opener here, which, I mean, it happens. Like, it even happens with a couple of pros, but we definitely don't see it as at all, actually, from that Stargate. From, like, the pros you would see usually, like, on WCS and stuff like that. Maybe in some of the Challenger leagues, but it does provide one fantastic thing above the other choices from the Stargate, and that is, like, early game defense. It's going to do well against roaches, and it's going to do okay against lings, kind of the middle of the road between, I guess, well, yeah, oracles being the other option against lings, but it helps a lot versus roaches, which you might have earlier roach pushes. I'm not sure. You know, there's that's the whole talk about prepping against someone that is better than you. Then yeah, you could throw out a roach all in or something along those lines, and maybe Dark Zero is aware of that, paranoid of that. Who knows? He is following it up as pretty normal. I mean, he clearly has a build in mind, but Frogs is doing something a little bit weird. It's not roaches though. It is really fast hydras.
Yeah, gonna be getting that Hydra speed upgrade because I've seen some of the NA memes come out every so often where you have a Zerg player do like 2-base lurk. Oh my god, he is gonna do 2-base lurk. I saw the Hydra range upgrade and I'm like, okay, clearly he's just making Hydras. This is not the 2-base lurk. Nope, it's 2-base lurkers. I actually really like this for someone trying to pull off an upset because it is one of those really weird strategies that if you are not actually totally prepared for it, you can kind of find yourself in a very awkward spot.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. But it is also one of those things that, like, similar to almost like an early game tank push, you are so dependent on few but important units that sometimes, like, just an overwhelming amount of units yourself can deal with it, even if they're not particularly good, even if you weren't particularly prepared. So even though this looks really scary, especially if it goes unscouted, sometimes it isn't. And Dark Zero is not trying to be greedy behind a Stargate, go for like a 4-minute third base. He's actually gotten all this production set up. He's going into Resident Glaives, which can jump on or behind lurkers. And the only thing he really has to worry about is detection, but he has both the Robo and the Stargate. So as soon as he gets a hint of this should be okay for him.
That's definitely true. It's worth noting that even though Dark Zero now has a bunch of sentries, it's actually still working in more. This is the first hallucinating Phoenix that Dark Zero is actually sending out. So before, I think that Dark Zero got a sense of like the layers starting up really quickly. But this hallucinating Phoenix, if it gets in there, if it sees that lurker den, like you said, there's going to be so much time for him to prepare for what Frogs is about to throw at him.
Yeah, and there's got to be a certain amount of surprise. Well, he didn't actually see the lurker den. He does see a building lurker, and hopefully he was actually paying attention to that. He also kind of sees it with the Void Ray. Yeah, he does, actually. So there's plenty of knowledge of this, and as I said, all he needs to do is get that detection. His army size is actually quite big. It's considerable. And I'm actually like a little more scared about the Hydra count if Frogs was adding on to it. Like, if he was about to make 12 more, I'd be like, maybe. But he's actually trying to go for as many lurkers as possible, and I'm not sure it's actually going to work out against what Dark Zero's attacking with.
Okay, so Dark Zero's going to get into a really nice position here. If the lurkers have been able to burrow at that choke point and really make this difficult for Dark Zero to push into, this could have gone maybe a little bit better for the Zerg player, but here we go. The lurkers end up burrowing, and they do push back that army. I mean, the adepts are going to clump up so much. This is an army very susceptible to that splash damage.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially going through this choke, right? Maybe break down the left side rocks, and it's a little bit better, but that's also the adepts can adapt to this situation, and that's exactly what he's going to try and do here. They go behind the lurkers, so they're only facing attack in one direction, but man, those adepts are awfully clumped up. It still was good enough as he just pushes through.
Yeah. Frogs, of course, it was a bit of an all-in play to just go for such a fast lurker den, to delay your third base by an extra minute and a half. So it was a lot pinned on that, and a really good adaptation there from Dark Zero to just go for that push and I guess punish his opponent for it.
And that should be game. Drone pull is quite desperate.
Yeah. Really nicely played there for both these guys. Frogs, like we said before, was a bit of an underdog here, sitting about like 700 MMR below his opponent. Tried something different, didn't work out, and Amazon's going to take the first one.
Yeah, it was definitely different. And if he was facing someone who was actually macroing, then I think that it could have been that surprise factor that could have destroyed him. You know, if he was just trying to go into a bunch of zealots with charge, maybe he was trying to like get up to Storm because he just, you know, that type of Protoss, the one that's like, if I get Storm, I'm good, right? But that is actually the difference of like a 4.9 Protoss and a 5.3, 5.4 Protoss. It's like you actually stop hitting people like that.
Well, yeah, with that being said and done, I think that was, again, like, that was Amazon. It was Amazon's game to lose there when you look at, like, the matchup of Dark Zero being just one of the top MMR players for Amazon there. Frogs gave it a good shot, but we go into game number 2. I think this one should theoretically be a little bit closer. The two players I'm going to be playing next are, I believe, Mestaman and Keelar. Mestaman is playing for Amazon. He is a 5.1k MMR player, and Keelar is a 4.8k MMR player who is really, really doing well this season. Is sitting with an 11-1 record and has even beaten the player that Amazon considers their ace player, Zest is Best. So I'm really looking forward to this second match. This is the match that Facebook has got to turn around a bit of that momentum.
Yeah, that does seem to be the best case scenario. And again, going into the idea that maybe Amazon is in fact weak against Zergs, but I love the description. Loves macro and cheese.
Yeah. I'm
What
like,
exactly
does
does
that
that
mean you
mean?
just love everything? Actually, you know what that says to me? That's like one of the players that says, I like macro and cheese. It's like, okay, I am the player that will go like 3 halves before pool and also tech up to hive tech before I make any Zerglings. Or I just go all in. It's like, there's no in
Okay.
between.
Maybe it's
That's
also
what-
like macro cheese and actual cheese. Because
Yeah.
people can certainly argue that it's weird, right? Cheese is almost always an early game thing, but actually if you go by the definition of something that has a high percent chance of winning or whatever it is, it can actually also be late. I mean, beginning of Legacy of the Void, if a Zerg player skyrocketed up to hive and got ultras, I would be like, you cheesy mofo. Like, I would actually be quite mad at them. A bit different now, of course.
Yeah, it's not always just like the cheap mac and cheese. Sometimes you gotta spring on like the expensive mac and cheese instead. So
Yeah, of course.
okay. So
Yeah,
I
we
think
had the
next map also
wrong
is- Yeah.
mod on. I don't think we want to do big game hunters.
that would definitely lean towards something in the mac and cheese thing.
Yeah. I personally don't want to cast it. That would be a long,
You just
long
turtle up on
time.
one base. It's like, all right, I still have an economy.
Oh, lordy.
So our next map is going to be Cyber Forest, though. And do you kind of have any thoughts like PVZ, Cyber Forest, like anything that springs to mind?
For a while, didn't it have like a fairly high Protoss win record? I think it's balanced out by now, though. That's the only thing I can really recall from that map specifically. Otherwise, its most unique feature when it was first released was the fact that you kind of went down into a well, as opposed to like Thunderbird, which has a very easy third base, or Kairos, where if you went down to take a base, you were also facing your opponent on the same playing field. Cyber Forest, and I'll do this better when we actually have something in front of you can watch, but you go down into a well and then you have to go back up to face someone. So that was always the most interesting thing about it. It like almost gave your opponent an attacker's advantage.
Yeah. When you try and, I guess, defend, you kind of, you get into a very awkward spot where you cut off between your natural and your third. So we've seen that happen so many times, like you were saying, especially some good force fields or something. But looks like the game is almost ready. I love. Now the last game was cool, but I want to do a little bit of a meta thing and bring attention to the fact that we have Mestaman and Keelar in the proper clans for their respective companies. Mestaman is in the Amazon clan and Keelar is in the Facebook clan, and I always like that. I really love seeing like players that are in those kind of communities that actually like they'll join the chat and play games and stuff with each other. That's one of my favorite things to see.
Well, with StarCraft 2 still being overall a lonely experience, it is always encouraging to see that people are still pushing that.
Yeah.
And hanging out. And like that's what's so awesome about this happening, Like it totally went under my radar, but that's not too awfully surprising. It just would it happens, and maybe they needed to go on the Pylon show a bit more. I don't know, but but it's like that's why it's so awesome is that it goes under the radar. It's not necessarily like the biggest, thousands of people watching, tasteless tweeting about it or something like that, but it is just encouraging these guys and maybe gals. I don't actually know every team and every member on the team to compete and play in StarCraft, which apparently many of them enjoy. For the players on Amazon all to be almost Grandmaster, that's impressive. But honestly, even a lot of the other teams having Diamond and Masters players, that's also impressive. Like imagine how many people in your life have the time to come back home and actually play a bunch of StarCraft and get kind of good at it. They usually don't. But if it's, for a good cause and it's with teammates, then suddenly it actually happens. But what the hell was that?
Double extractor trick. Wait, was that a triple?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Double extract. Okay, new meta zombie grub. All right, you were talking about like tasteless isn't here. No. This is new meta right now. All right, the new standard.
That is really weird. So he basically what he's doing is literally skipping the necessity of an overlord, and it doesn't really work out that way. I don't think this is going to become like, you know, Alpha Star overproducing probes in PvP, but I love the ingenuity that's being thrown out here.
Yeah, that's great. Now there is going to be, of course, this probe here from Mestaman from Amazon coming forward, scouting out the natural and saying, wait, that hatchery looks a little bit behind. He's going to come forward and see the gas, should see the spawning pool timing and says, okay. But still actually going to go for the Nexus. This is one of those maps that you have a really easy wall at the natural. Like, there's some maps where I think you, as a Protoss player, you see like the early, like the pool first or something. You're like, do I wanna go for the Nexus after Gateway? Do I want to just throw my Cybercore first, hit the wall up? This is one of those maps I think you can go for the Nexus usually, right?
I think so. Well, it is still, most maps are 3 building wall offs, right? Maybe like, one of the maps is like kind of an awkward 2.5 one, but anyways, and Thunderbird has that option to like go in front and like wall off your 3 bases, and that's like 3 or 4 buildings, 3.5.
Oh
buildings.
yeah,
yeah, that's
like,
insane.
I will wall this off with 3 Nexus.
Yeah, but people do it, and it's like, okay,
Yeah,
if you want to be Daedalus point again. But anyways, yeah, this one's easy enough. I just think that, like, for what was kind of an oddly timed everything, I guess it still was like a hatchery and a spawning pool, so not really worried about what was popping out. And well, Messiman was correct not to be worried. It's not lings. It's roaches, and that's, well, something he doesn't even know he needs to be worried about.
Yeah, 2 Overlords are going to be finishing up right around the time that Roach Warren pops as well, so there's going to be a huge swell of roaches coming out. I mean, look at this. Messaman already fully walling off and getting up the shield battery, and has 3 pylons powering his front buildings. This is really, really showing a lot of respect for this attack that's coming, because it is an all-in. This is an all-or-nothing thing from Keeler. He has to get massive damage done or he's out of this game.
Yeah, just the continued lack of third base, the continued lack of drones in that natural means that he didn't have to worry about super early lings, but still has to worry about being aggressive. And, well, there's the sight on the roaches if there was any doubt about that on the way. And is this, it's so early. It really is just going to be right to the face. And Messaman is already preparing for it. Robo is on the way, but second shield battery is definitely a good move. Chrono all into the army. If he had to, skipping probe is also, you know, totally fair move in this situation, but I guess he just figures he doesn't have to.
Yeah, a lot of the lings are already going to get taken out over here. A few more pop forward. Here come those roaches. The shield battery is now out of energy, but you can't just take out the Zealot there. You actually have to kill the shield battery to break through this little wall. The Stalkers are starting to whittle away at that roach count. The Force Field traps in a couple of those roaches. Here comes another bit of the wall in, preventing the units from running by, and the units, the Zerg units, are not actually going after the wall, they're going after the units.
This is, yeah, potentially the biggest mistake was not to break down the wall first and foremost. That's when the lings really start to complicate things. The best thing to do against lings is to definitely have that wall. But I just also feel like Messaman was so properly prepared for this. That even if the lings had gotten through, we're still talking about a decent amount of army and a decent amount of workers too to pull and sacrifice to still be ahead in this game.
Yeah, and I want to note, like, there is one extra little scout that Messaman got that we saw earlier on, the probe that ran in and saw the roaches. There may have been one final little question for Messaman to say, is this going to be a Bane bust or is this going to be a big roach attack? That can sort of change maybe the units you want to get if you want to get more sentries versus stalkers and stuff. So Messaman even seeing that, throwing down the robo to have the immortals out and completely hard shut down the chance that this ever really snowballs. Like, Messaman was just so prepared, like you said, Zombie Grub. He was unbelievably prepared. So it's tough for Keelar because now you were in a really, really all-in position. And looks like this follow-up is just, let's get up a couple of drones and then just go make another big army and go for it again.
Well, that's, I mean, it's usually the Protoss mantra is to all in and then all in again, but that's, that definitely has not only been Protoss's mantra for, well, certainly the entire Legacy of the Void. And the Zerg can sometimes be very effective with it. That's actually the beginning of Legacy of the Void. Was all we saw was like 3 base, and it was 3 base, not 2, so that's the one downside for sure for Keeler, but 3 base Roach Ravager all-ins, and if it didn't work, he just did it again and hoped that there was more Ravagers, and somehow they would mess up. So I don't hate it. It is kind of, you know, what options you really have, but unfortunately, with such a committed attack, we now have this awkward, you don't even quite have the right gas to minerals. You actually have excess minerals as they're supposed to be able to be on 3 bases in Legacy of the Void. And it's like, was it a follow-up, or was it just so scared of the potential Warp Prism harassment?
Yeah, I think you're actually right. It really was just making a few units and then saying, all right, I can at least survive for a little bit, but that's definitely going to cost Keelar. It's not going to have as good of an economy as they would have liked. Layer tech is only just now getting started, so things like Roach Speed are going to be a long ways away from finishing. The 3rd base may not actually finish safely over here, as the unit's already out on the map here from Estiman.
Yeah. Warp Prism harassment was just a little taste of what's to come. The 2 base attack is real. We got 7 gateways. We got charge almost done, not quite, but you can actually move them without it, because really the power is in these Immortals chunking away on those Roaches. The Lings will have to go on top of the Zealots, charge or not. That there's charge kicking in to help against the Roaches as well.
Yeah, and I mean, a charge lot will win versus a Roach in a one-on-one fight. So when you say that there are, let's see, 14 charge lots and 1 Roach, I can tell you who wins that fight, Zombie Crow.
Yeah, a little bit of an easy tell there. And that is going to be another win for Amazon. Another win for Protoss on 2 base against Zerg.
All right.
I'm just saying. But no. A lot of this is prompted from the Zerg players and their openers. GG. And is a very appropriate reaction from the Protoss players. So, clearly, I think there is the whole, like, well, their best chance is probably to cheese us, right? So we should probably be cheese-proof, and that's what's happening. Amazon is looking quite strong.
Absolutely, and we have seen so far Facebook Legacy coming out with these probably pre-prepared build orders of, like, the 2 base Lurker Rush, and, you know, this Roach all-in with the triple extractor trick, which I still love. I know he lost the game, but I still love just the idea of that, because I've never ever heard of anyone doing something like that before. Yeah, the Protoss players have just been super duper solid. But hey, you know what? If you're a little bit afraid of the power of Protoss, we got a PvP coming on up. So even playing field in that regard, the MMR gap is going to widen once again just a little bit, as Amazon is sending out the player that they say is one of their, like, ace players, Zest is Best, who's a 5.4k MMR player with a 12-1 win record, facing off versus the team captain for Facebook, Sour Spinach.
Seems to also like a certain Protoss building that people really don't like. Is that a Dark Shrine? I'm gonna guess it's a Dark Shrine.
I really like Dark Shrines. I don't know why people would dislike Dark Shrines.
You're not most people, so...
Yeah, so Sour Spinach, you know, I actually really appreciate this. We were given a bunch of notes about the players and everything. But I was really happy because the players themselves, or I think the teams, filled out all their notes. And Facebook even listed, like, what do they do and everything. So, for example, Sour Spinach is a software engineer on the internal tools team, which is really cool.
Yeah, just another really nice thing about this entire setup is that there's just very clearly passionate people behind this. It's not just like the great amount of money that they're giving to charity, but also just the amount of work that seems to be put into it. And that is impressive. To have someone reach out to me and, you know, be very professional, and then send someone else to reach out to me and be like, hey, what do you want to know? Is really quite cool. And... well, now we can just give as much information as possible to you guys, and maybe anyone in, I guess it's kind of America only, isn't it? Like, I don't know if that's actually an official rule, but...
I think it's, there are companies that have non-American players. Like, I remember in the past, we'd have, like, a player from Brazil or something, like, or just other parts of, I guess, the world. But I think a lot of the companies that are participating typically have, like, headquarters in the United States, or specifically in Silicon Valley or something. So there is a higher tendency for players to be from the United States.
Yeah.
You're definitely not wrong there.
Yeah, so actually the guy that set up all the notes is keeping tabs, listening in, and he says that they had a Europe-only team and an Australian-only team, actually.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Australia only.
Yeah, it is a little bit global. That's awesome.
See, that's the team that I would have all-in every game with the ping.
Sure, yeah, of course. But I think these two teams right now are actually like all America, and maybe even a lot of them are okay with East Coast. Actually have a specific request, so that's what's taking a little while. No problem. So that's cool. And it's actually like if you guys want more information, but if you're also interested in organizing something, that would be super dope. Like I really regretted not being able to do anything with CSL because I just went to like literally a school with like 300 people, like literally. But if you actually have like 4 of their coworkers that play StarCraft, definitely go to CEA.gg and learn more about it. There is a registration cost, but I mean, it's obviously all for a good cause, and you get a lot of content. This is not just like, pay us $1 billion and you face this one guy once. Also, we don't care about you, and
Yeah.
do all your own stuff. Like, no, that's actually very legit. I don't know what their other organizations' games look like, but I know for Rocket League, we even had Axotos organizing that, doing the casting for that. So pretty cool. I know they're interested in doing like Rainbow Six potentially next season, which I think is really cool. It's definitely one of the best esports that has grown really organically. Kind of a big fan of watching certain esports grow, even if I don't actually watch or play the game that much.
Yeah. I think that, just to touch on what you were saying about like the organization and everything, I am a huge fan of it. And I know actually a lot of the people who are involved with CEA are the same people who are actually involved with helping make the AHGL happen. So I have a lot more experience talking with those guys and everything, and they've just been phenomenal. They are great, and they love being able to just bring a bunch of people together, create these kind of communities where, like you were saying, sometimes, for example, StarCraft can be a little bit of a lonely game. You play versus faceless people on the ladder all day, and sometimes it's nice to just sort of get a little bit more involved in community and everything. And even for these teams, I actually want to note this is really important. Even for teams like, you may look at Amazon or Facebook and say, oh well, all these players are Grandmaster League or something. I know Fear Dragon was saying earlier on that sure, there are some teams that have lower league players, but I work at Amazon and there's no way I'd ever get to be able to play on the team. Well, here's the cool thing is actually, I know for HL and I believe for CEA, there are different companies will submit actually multiple teams for their lineup. So they'll actually have, that's why it's actually not just called like Team Amazon, it's called the Alexa 12 pool.
Yeah.
They have different Amazon teams with different ranges of skills. So you can get involved regardless of your level.
Yeah, that's what I was reading into as well. There's like Google has like, it almost looks like they have 3 teams, right? They have the beta stars, the alpha stars, and then they also mention like alt source is one of their team names. So like a ton of people, I guess, play there. So exactly, it's still certainly worth looking into. Oh, you're in lobby. I'm gonna join off of you.
In lobby. I think these people are also so nice because every single time they also ask for us to stay ready.
Yeah.
Which I'm not used to. I'm used to pro players just being like, ready or not, here we go.
Yeah, for sure. Every time, but the funny thing is, I'm so used to it, and like I don't really play ads on my channel that now when like pro players are nice enough to do it in the qualifiers, I'm like, what are you doing? You don't have to ask me.
Just go. We're ready always.
Oh, but it is much appreciated. Next, maps Turbo Cruise for this PvP.
Ooh, okay. Turbo Cruise, fun map, and just in case there are some of you tuning out there, watching some of your friends at the company or something play, maybe you haven't played StarCraft for a while, this is one of those maps that does have a new feature to StarCraft, which is basically slow zones. If you remember the time warps that like a mothership or a mothership core in the past could throw out and just slow down units, we have those, but they're actually even better. They also slow down attack speed. So it's definitely an interesting map.
Yes, it is, and we have an interesting little, very, very early probe. Super
That's a
duper
probe before
early.
that's gotta be a cannon rush, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Like I almost was like, does he throw it on gateways? Like, is this a proxy gateway? No, I don't think that is really quite a bad build. But a cannon rush is actually quite good? Question mark.
So there is one specific spot in the top left-hand side of this base.
It's not
blocking the gas, right? Oh, is this just to block the? This is just to block the gas.
Wow. Well, that is very brutal for a Protoss player, especially to have their gas stolen, especially in this matchup where you really do get both of them quite quickly. But it looks like Sour Spinach might have been alerted to this. Maybe just seeing the probe that early, he already knew like what the plan was, because he countered the gas block. He blocked the gas block.
Yeah. Really, really well reacted there by Sour Spinach in actually a pretty good spot, because it may not seem like the biggest of deals to say, oh, well, he just sent out a worker. Well, that worker normally would be mining for at least another extra like 20, 30 seconds. That's maybe an extra like 20, 30 minerals that maybe slows down one of your probes that could have been mining for a little bit long. Like all these things sort of snowball. So it does actually hurt your economy to do these kinds of things. This does put Sour Spinach in a slightly better spot.
It does, actually, because he was able to successfully block it. There's a world where he's just like, what the hell is that doing? And then the gas fills him, and he's like, what? Who does that? But yeah, with that early of a probe, I would imagine that something is a little off. I couldn't tell you exactly what, but I do know, having done Protoss openers, and they're mostly the same for the actual opener here. We'll see if it changes with a Nexus versus like a third gateway versus whatever else. It can be quite tight on the minerals, for sure. It seemed like Zest's Best is doing all right. Starts a Stalker and a Sentry, and Warp Gate. Definitely one of the safe openers that we have, with the Lucid Phoenix coming out quite quickly. A while ago at this point, they did buff the hallucination cost, so it's been quite a good opener. And one of the reasons that PvP had its big change, and a lot of complaints were going on as well, and it just was a very funny matchup for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Small little note is that Zest's Best tried to go for the pylon block there. That is actually really nice, because if you throw out the pylon before the gateways finish up any units, you can leave the pylon there building, and you'll scout it to see if they went for double adept, or if they went for stalker adept, or if they went for 2 stalkers. And then you can always just cancel it if they went for 2 stalkers or something. And if they went for double adept, guess what? One of those adepts with this Wallen would not actually get out. So you just let that pylon finish sometimes. One of my favorite things to do, but Zest's Best cancels it, knows that his opponent opened up double stalker, and is instead just going to go for a Twilight Council.
Yes, so Lucid Phoenix does get slowed. That's a little awkward. These stalkers were in... I mean, they were looking for anything to pop up. I won't even say that they're in a great anti-hallucination position, but with the slow added on, it was a little scary. But that is a successful scout, confirms that that pylon on the natural was actually, you know, for the protection of the Nexus, and that nothing yet has been thrown down beyond that. Well, actually, he sees the Twilight Council, so there you go. And, well, that's on the way. Obviously, Zest's Best is much faster, so... He went Twilight Council, then Nexus, and is now chroning out there as an Englaves. Already has a pylon set up as well.
Yeah, Zest's Best living up to the name. A lot of the Korean Protoss players these days really, really seem to like Adepts in the PvP matchup right now. It's kind of like a return to PvP from a while ago. Okay, these 2 Adepts are like, what's hitting us? I'm getting hit by something, but I don't know from where.
Yeah, they're awfully confused. It's definitely good to test your opponent's ability to slap down that shield battery, and now with the natural being up so quickly, we also have the potential to just try and snipe probes there. The best case scenario is usually to actually get in that main, force every unit back, and then force them to chase them around, as well as kill a decent amount of probes. But this is obviously not just a couple of pokes and prods and being like, aha, gotcha, every once in a while. This could be leading into a very real adept attack. I mean, even 6 adepts with Resident Englaves, any one of these mineral lines, even if the stalkers are on them, and the probes get slaughtered.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have seen this happen, not even just in, you know, Diamond League or Gold League or Masters League. I mean, this happens to the top level pro players where you miss that shield battery and hey, the 2 adepts get in. They're already killing a lot of workers between the 2 mineral lines. Probes all not mining as well, so it's not just the probe loss, it's also the mining time loss. So Sour Spinach taking a ton of damage here.
I'm probably gonna get at least one more probe. Okay, 13 probes in total, and now he has Resident Englaves with every adept that comes forward. Sour Spinach, especially with Blink finishing up, would, oh man, a great thing would be finding that pylon, because there's gotta be one, right? But instead, he's gonna try and just catch Zest's Best without that army supply, but he actually has an army. He's been building Immortals behind this, and is now even taking this counter very seriously with shield batteries.
Yep, knowing how much damage done, the shield batteries are going to keep that immortal alive. A couple of sentries also may be useful, even though, of course, as blink stalkers are going to be able to blink over force fields that maybe force field them in. Still nice for guardian shield if you can build up the energy for it, and you can also force field stalkers that try and blink forward to snipe out that immortal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very effective anti-stalker attack, and, well, let's just be real. Sour Spinach is not really prepping for a real dedicated attack. I mean, 4 gateways is a decent amount, but no Warp Prism, and obviously having to build stalkers back at home and just build more probes to replace all the ones that he's lost. So 7 more going down. That's a total of 20. He's now 10 workers. Oh, it's 10 army supply down, actually. He's only 3 workers behind, so that's the good news. He's been pumping probes while he's losing them.
And Sour Spinach finds the pylon, so exactly what you were saying. He's not that behind in workers, but it is about that army supply. The nice thing for Sour Spinach that maybe, just maybe, Sour Spinach will be able to take advantage of is the fact that Blink Stalkers can actually do a lot on this map specifically. If Zest's Best is a little bit too far out, like into the middle of the map or something, and Stalkers blink up into his main base, could lose a lot of production, could get into a really dicey spot, but that immortal count's growing really fast, and it's going to become a problem soon.
Yeah. It looks like he actually might have stopped on 2. I mean, I like 3 or 2, but the days of like 4, 5, 6 are usually only used against someone going literally mass playing stalker, which is just generally not good as you go into the mid game. So Zest stopping on that. Okay, there's the 3rd one started. But also adding on the charge and +1. Now, Sour Spinach is also adding on charge, and they both should be slapping down Templar Archives at some point too. But not at any point could he really afford a Forge. There's got to be some sacrifice for how many probes the Blue Protoss had to replace, and the Forge is definitely one of those sacrifices.
Yeah. Templar Archives and getting up some Archons, that charge slot Archon composition for Sour Spinach can be an effective answer to some extent for a large number of Immortals. But like you said, it's not an insane number of Immortals just yet. Zest's Best did cut some of those Immortals, like you were saying, and is going for those own Archons. So we'll see how this ends up panning out. I do like that Zest's Best is still doing more of that Adept harassment. He's sending a couple more Adepts across the map. But Sour Spinach is actually prepared for this. He has a bunch of charge lots, intercepting these Adepts, getting ready for them, and not going to allow any more damage to happen with those.
They might have been going for their own harassment or looking for more pylons, because they kind of...
Yeah.
They almost accidentally found those Adepts, but working out really nicely. Now maybe they'll set up for that harassment, or just checking to see if anything's at the 3rd, because the intention is to grab a 3rd Nexus. Also might have been their job, which they have done a very good job at, but they should probably be shift-clicked around. Maybe later. Right now, Sour Spinach is focusing on his Stalkers. He lost the Observer like a while ago and has not replaced it, which, okay, he doesn't get to do the hop up into the main base thing, but for me, it's like he doesn't realize that an army is moving across the map or where the army is at all, so now he's gonna have to recall awkwardly into an attack, probably.
Now, the kind of interesting thing is that there is going to be a couple of Zealots on the left-hand side, actually a decent number of Zealots on the left-hand side potentially, and the Stalker's coming in from behind with the Immortals on the front. He could get a really nice surround, but oh, it's all mistimed. He loses one of the Immortals, loses a handful of the Zealots separately, and now the other 2 Immortals are really, really flop on their own. The Stalker's getting a single Archon, but the rest of Sour Spinach's army is absolutely demolished.
There was a chance to get the Warp Prism, you know, if he had realized it was there, and like from the get-go, we maybe could have grabbed that, but there would have been still so much army left over. Sour Spinach taps out. GG. Zest's Best is the best in this game.
And it turns out one of the ace players for Amazon is still pretty good at StarCraft. Really, really nice show of just Adept harassment in that game.
Yeah, it was certainly interesting to see Resident Enclaves come out and only be used for harassment. There's definitely patience, almost like bringing back Resident Enclave Adept all-ins in both PvP and PvT. That's more what I was expecting, but really just, well, I guess in total made like 8 Adepts, but Adepts over time, getting the probe damage, and then moving on to a regular-looking PvP. Unfortunately for Sour Spinach, not only did he have kind of an inferior composition, but just also no sight on the map. The Stalkers tried to get back on it, do their job, and they couldn't. They didn't have extra vision with any observers, and they didn't actually have the positioning to see that our move across the map. Maybe it would have been different if he had been prepared.
Yeah, I do want to give props to Sour Spinach for, despite we were talking about this, he lost a lot of workers, but he never actually dipped too far behind in the worker count, maybe only like 3 or 4 behind. So living up to the explanation or like the description that he gave himself, which is he was a macro player. So Sour Spinach, the captain of Facebook, does go down, and Amazon now sitting up 3-0 in a best of 7 in Zombie Grub. I don't know a lot about math, but that's 1 game away from a complete victory there for Amazon.
Aren't you a programmer?
I got into software development because I do not like math.
Oh, okay.
I learned that if I use my TI-83 calculator, which had like just the basic programming language on there, that I could program in all the word problems and like quadratic formula and everything, and I could cheat on all of my exams. And that's how I got introduced to software development.
Awesome. I mean, it's kind of BS that they don't, like, they're like, you shouldn't use calculators, you'll never have one, you know, all the time in your life. And I'm like, well, first of all, now we really do. But then second of all, if I'm like in a profession that has math, I'm gonna guess they're gonna give me a calculator.
Yeah, Zombie Grub, I mean, what are you going to do if you're sitting at your desk and you just realize I need to do the quadratic formula, but all of my internet access is out right now? How on earth, as a software developer, will I solve this problem?
You know what? As someone who does, like, you know, when you're just bored in the waiting room and you've looked through Reddit often enough, and you're like, what else can I do? As someone who starts to think about, like, zombie apocalypse scenarios of, like, how do I escape this room? Like, who do I go to first? What's going on here? I am well aware that my lack of, like, mathematical prowess, because I really have forgotten everything I've ever learned about math, is probably going to kill me.
Huh. An interesting one. Mathematical prowess and zombie apocalypses are not 2 things I would have put together. But
I feel like you
general engineering.
Like, obviously survival skills are probably, like, first what you're going to be, like, you know, wanting, but
you don't rank math higher than, like, hunting skills.
Yeah, but I still feel like there's a couple scenarios where I've seen, like, people in, like, desperate survival situations, and they'll be like, well, if you can, like anything actually to do with even, like, angles of, like, the sun, if you can tell if the angle of the sun is this, and I'm like, all right, you've already lost me, all right, like, I'm already screwed.
That's actually very true. A lot of people are very good at, like, navigation and stuff. But speaking of these 2 players that are going to be playing this next match, it's going to be game number 4. Amazon setting up 3-0 as mentioned before, and 1 game away from their victory. It is going to be Mr. November playing for Amazon, a Zerg player finally, not the Protoss player for Amazon, since we've seen 3 Protoss from them today. And it's going to be a Zerg player also from Team Facebook. So it's going to be Lord for Facebook. This Zombie Grub, I kind of have to be a little bit honest about this one. This is going to be a really tough match for Lord because there is a 1,000 MMR difference between these 2 players. That's a pretty substantial gap. So I was going to say I think we should be expecting some cheeky build out of Lord. That's actually Mr. November that's opening up cheeky.
Okay. Well, it is just one of those no gas early pools, so just testing the water, seeing if his opponent does collapse to this, because I'm gonna be honest, like 4.3, that's what Wailord, whatever you want to pronounce it is. Like, this is possible that he severely mishandled the situation. Depends on how many, you know, videos, how many times you rewatch Lambo's video about how to deal with all the early pools. Because it can be tricky, even if it's not the most committed one. But even though he didn't go for the early pool, he did do that extractor trick, early hatch, early gas pool thing. So it could have been worse. I'm still worried about how the execution's going to come down here.
Yeah, we're going to have to keep an eye out for things like Overlord positioning to see when exactly the Overlord's got to scout out on those lanes heading across the map. We see Mr. November is making not just the 6 lanes, is going to go up to 8, and of course did also not get a gas geyser. So this does allow Mr. November to transition out. As much as people would say, like, oh, 12 pool, ha ha ha, like it's such an all-in. It's actually not in ZVZ. It's a very easily transitional build. And Lord is going to catch wind of this with his Overlord.
Hopefully was paying attention. It's exactly what the Overlord's job is, to see this. There are people who try and be a little more clever with it, but generally not with one of these forward, macro early pools. They kind of just send whatever they got out. Who cares if you notice it? as they're hoping that you do have a fairly late pool to begin with. In this case, again, it was a hatch first, but it was a very fast pool, like a 15 pool regardless. So the lings pop out. Mr. November's like, hey, like, why lings already?
Now, this is where things do get tricky when you have a kind of an underdog playing versus a very skilled or kind of favored player. Is when do you stop committing to the defense? When do you say, okay, cool, they're probably backing off and I can drone safely now?
Well, don't even bother droning, man. Just go all in. All in for the win. Unfortunately, with the early pool, I think that there's already, like, Mr. Vimber's already like, okay, like, this might just be defensive. Maybe this is an overreaction. He thought I was going to 12 pool him. But the Overlord saw all the other lings come out. So if there was a question, it's no longer a question. And again, I don't even know if it really was that much of a question. Mr. November preparing very early on, getting a spine crawler, only getting a couple drones, and I mean, he has 2 queens. This should be a defense. 3 queens.
Yeah, queens are going to get involved in this fight now. Spinecrawler also going to be able to burrow probably successfully here, and the lings, most of them have already been taken out. They're going to start trying to whittle away at some of those queens. And they do find an opportunity to go into the main base. I think that is probably best case scenario here for Wylord to try and get something done in the main, but you can see it doesn't work out. Drones clean all that up, and Mr. November is sitting up 6 workers right now.
Yeah. They both have hatcheries, but now the problem would be just the drones have been mining basically this entire time for Mr. November. There's already an increase in that income, already 2 queens to make him feel protected alongside a spine crawler. Actually getting 2 spine crawlers because he continues to see more lings. Now, actually, if he could cancel that, that would be the best case scenario. But again, like, this is going to keep him safe to further attacks, like farther into the game.
Okay, queens don't want to allow the run by into the main base, but at the same time, they are letting a lot of the lings and the spine crawler at the natural get taken out here. This large swell of wings here from Wylord is getting some damage done, and he gets us around on one of the queens, doing a lot of damage to the other ones. Transfusions do come out to keep that team alive a little bit longer, and reinforcements come out. Mr. November is going to be able to push his opponent back, but Wylord has been able to drone up behind all of this.
That's true, and drone up quite a bit. Mr. November was a little late starting those lings, and is now with a lot of lings that look kind of useless, right? Like, more even popping out as he realized that was getting a little testy.
The Roach Warren is going to be added on here for Wylord. I guess just saying, okay, well, I feel like I was able to get some damage on. Like, that last trade actually went pretty well for Wylord. So if you can get up safely into the roaches, I mean, not even gonna have to worry about speedlings or anything. There's still another spine crawler going up over here for Mr. November. All that talk that I had about, oh, is Wylord gonna overcommit to the defense? I'm actually starting to feel a little bit afraid for Mr. November doing that.
It is a little scary. I think that he could have gone without the spine crawler, but he actually probably needs it because there's not a very quick follow-up in a roaches. That was probably his plan, was to just really, like, the fact that he doesn't have speed is not a mistake. You want to go right up from the roaches, maybe even create that wall off that we're so familiar with, but because that maybe went a little bit worse than he intended, and it actually does start speed, I don't know if that's really necessary, but it's not there. And he is about to be attacked again, not just with lings this time, but also with roaches, and I really feel like this is another case. Another player would have already had his roach worn down, building his own roaches. Instead, we have slow lings, and yeah, absolutely got to build more spine crawlers in this scenario.
All right, here we go. The roaches are now arriving, and of course, all of these roaches have been walking straight underneath a lot of those overlords there for Mr. November, so definitely knows what's coming. Because a lot of these spine crawlers are going to have time to finish, and there is the roach warren finally being added on there for Mr. November. Will Mr. November survive long enough to take advantage of it and that higher drone count?
2 spine crawlers are almost done. He actually goes after one of the ones that's building. One Ravager's going to help out against 2 of the spine crawlers here, but the lings got slaughtered to the slow lings of Mr. November. There's a transfuse readily available as well, and that's 3 spine crawlers that now have to be busted down, but Ravager Corrosive Bottles will hit 2 at once.
Ooh, tries to pull back one of the spine crawlers outside of the corrosive bile, still gets hit by it, but the Ling frontier for Wylord has kind of been dissipated. So now the spine crawlers are mostly working away at some of these roaches. Drones are even being pulled off the line, but remember, Mr. November is up in workers. He can afford to lose a few and still be okay.
Trying to hit those drones with the corrosive bile instead of the spine crawler, but either way, too many Lings are popping out, and now they do have speed, which does give him a little bit more map control that he was certainly missing for the first 7 minutes of the game. The Roachborn is also done, and Mr. November is maybe having a larva problem right now because of how often he's had to pull the queens away and had to transfuse, as he's banking quite a bit here.
Both of these players, yeah, definitely very low on larva right now. Wylord is getting forced back and takes some bad trades with the Lings versus his opponent's Lings for a little bit. So Mr. November pulls back to the safety of that spine crawler. Here comes round number, I guess 3 or 4. I don't even know what round it is anymore. Wylord is going to try and bust through once again, though, and there are roaches this time for Mr. November.
No, it does help. Just, I think a few more Lings as well. Defensively, is Wylord is always going to be up against that defender's advantage across a fairly lengthy map, too. But I really gotta applaud Wylord's ZVZ here for the number that was thrown out on that dock, the 4.3. I wasn't expecting. It was actually some pretty good macro. Also keeping up with the lair. Right now, the biggest problem is that he doesn't have an evolution chamber, which Mr. November did finally slap down and start +1. And that is going to be a problem, because if there was an intention to do upgrade list all in off 3 bases, because this guy's been doing nothing but all ins, right? I'm afraid it won't hit that timing that you really want, which is like before their +1 is done, before they've recuperated their army sacrifices for getting that +1. I don't think that'll be hit. So yeah, our blue Zerg is just gonna be down an upgrade and at an even economy. So that's just a straight up victory there for Bruce November.
Yeah, Mr. November starting to climb further and further ahead. It's kind of funny because looking at like the notes we got on these players, one of the notes from Mr. November that his teammates are saying is that I think I see a nicer way of putting it is sometimes he has some trouble finishing the games. Definitely gives his teammates some heart attacks every so often. And this game has definitely been close. He's been living up to that, but he is starting to get these edges that are going to be difficult to deal with for Wylord as the game goes on, like you said.
Their bases are done-ish for both players. Overseer is getting a good sight on how many drones are being made at this time, also how much gas is being made too. And there was the chance that there was some type of unpredictable spire coming down from either side, so lots of things at this time that the Overseer wants to scout. They both get pretty decent scouts. The Wylord is going for that upgradeless attack, but as I said, it's like it's not really hitting anything useful. Usually you sacrifice this to have X amount of army supply over your opponent, or their +1 isn't quite done yet. But that's not the case here, and with the defender's advantage kicking as well.
The Lings engaging before the Roaches get there. That is brutal, because those were supposed to be a little bit of a frontline buffer. A Ling counterattack as well. It kills 10 drones and is going to kill the Spine Crawler. At the same time, the Roaches feel like they're forced up a ramp. Suddenly, everything is just spiraling out of control for Wylord.
Yeah. It was a good attempt to do it as some type of follow-up attack, especially one that can be a little bit harder to scout if you're not on top of like, hey, how many drones does my opponent have? Hey, is their army moving out? But Mr. November was totally on top of things. Plus, I don't think he really took as much damage as Wylord was hoping he would from those earlier attacks. It got close. There was like almost a break into the main, you know, or in the natural drone count, but it didn't ever really happen. And then Mr. November defended the, you said you lost count, me too, like the 3rd or 4th attack or something like that, but being up 9 drones. So it's just been victories for him for the last 5 minutes or so. And now an even bigger victory, and probably the game and series victory.
Yeah, Wylord gonna do his best to try and turn this around, as I think all the hopes are kind of riding on him right now for Team Facebook, as currently sitting down 0-3 once again. So if Amazon takes this one, if Mr. November clean house on this, that is going to be an ultimate victory in this best of 7 for Amazon. But Mr. November is just pumping out more roaches, has those double upgrades on the way as well to maintain an upgrade advantage. And Wylord is just down in army supply right now, not even factoring in the upgrades.
Mr. November's going to be hitting before his 2-1, but also hitting before his opponent's 1. So regardless here, he's got an upgrade advantage, and he certainly has the army supply to push past, even if he didn't have an upgrade advantage. So the Overseer is going to kind of confirm that. There's a bit of a split from Waylord, but maybe hiding his army. It's really not that impressive of an army.
Yeah, I want to note that during this engagement, as the Corrosive Vials land on top of Waylord's army, although Mr. November is pushing up a ramp, he's also setting up an Overlord drop to hit the natural at the same time. But I think that this army fight is gonna be kind of close, but Mr. November still is gonna come out on top. And with that, Waylord loses everything there, and GG, well played, gets called.
GG indeed. Waylord should not be feeling bad about that game. He went up against someone that was literally 1,000 MMR above him. That's considerable. That's I actually, what is 4.3? Is that diamond?
That's diamond. Actually, that might be diamond 1, Masters 3.
Okay,
somewhere in that range. Yeah.
But then you're facing someone who's actually basically on the brink of GM, or is occasionally GM. That is a huge difference, and he actually made the guy sweat a little. His actual macro and performance that I was paying attention to was quite good. And yeah, I would not feel bad about that at all. But he was up against a bit of a titan, and he had the entire, his entire Facebook crew on his back as well. Yeah, a lot of pressure, but still played a very, very good game. And now Amazon is now, I believe, 3-time champion of this league.
Congrats.
So yeah,
no hashtag bias for me as a former Amazon employee, but really cool to see Amazon, continuing their sort of reign of terror. I know for a long time in the beginning of HCL, seems like Microsoft and everyone were really, really dominant, but Amazon's had their time now in the spotlight. So we'll see if someone can dethrone them maybe next season.
Can you try and explain why Amazon just has so many better players without being biased?
I thought a lot about this when I was at Amazon, and I actually do think it's a little bit of a numbers. So I was talking to you about this before. So it's a little bit of a numbers thing because Amazon is such a big company, as is, of course, like Google or Facebook and Microsoft and everything. But I think that it's the small things that we were talking about before, where Amazon, I know, has that culture where they are setting up like internal team games or like, not team games, but matches against each other, and they're practicing. They have a mailing list where they're talking about things that happen. Like, I love that kind of stuff, and I think just building that community and atmosphere helps motivate the players to try and, I guess, push themselves. Besides that, I don't know exactly why this worked out so much better for Amazon versus other companies, but I know I was telling you before the broadcast that, it's kind of funny because back like a couple of years ago, like during AHGL, it was like a powerhouse team to have some like 4.5K-ish MMR players, or like 4.4K. If your entire team was like Masters 3 or Masters 2, you were like a powerhouse team. And then there was like 1 or 2 Grandmasters. Now it's like, all right, we got a team that's like almost entirely Grandmaster. And then we have like a Masters 2 player or something. I'm like, whoa, everything escalated. I guess all the people who were really good at StarCraft in college graduated, and now they work at these companies.
Yeah, or just like over time with a good support structure of actually playing the game competitively, understandably makes these guys better. StarCraft 2 is slowly but surely coming to a point of, well, not exactly like Brood War, but a little bit of the whole like, well, you're probably going to be facing a lot of people that have been playing for a very long time. You no longer like, this is a brand new game. We probably both don't know what we're doing. No, not so much. But yeah, good guesses. Okay, like your hypothesis. That's a lot of employees. 600,000.
Yep.
Damn.
Amazon's a big company.
Yeah. Okay then. Yeah, I trust him because he plays for him. Okay. Played against him. So that just about wraps things up, guys. 4-0 for Amazon. Congrats on the triple victory here, and good luck to Facebook for the next season. But remember, guys, these guys weren't even playing, like, I guess there's a little bit of bragging rights. There's a little bit of joking in the chat right now about, like, hey, who wants to join Facebook? We need some players. But it was all for charity. So Amazon now gets to give $3,000 to GiveWell, which is really, really cool of them to do. I guess it really is just more about having that competitive field of play than it is about, like, being like, hey, we made some money. Although it is cool to have your name on player esports earnings. Okay, I'm just give them like $5, they can appear on there. That'd be the dopest. Anyways, it all goes there, and there's more money given out by this company to the other games that are going on as well, all to charity. So a ton of cash going to charity. Really cool initiative. I'm really glad I got to learn more about it as well. So big thanks for inviting us. You know, I see a lot of you guys in chat watching the stream. It was fun, and I'm definitely on board this just whole initiative company. After Hours Gaming League was really cool, and I'm glad to see that it's continuing on with a lot of passionate people. So yeah. And thank you, Fear Dragon, for joining me as well.
No, thank you for having me. This is like something that I hold very dear to me, and like these, like, because you were talking about Collegiate Star League as being sort of the college counterpart in a lot of ways for, say, After Hours Gaming League or Corporate Esports Association. But I love these kind of leagues. To me, pro scene is amazing and it's great, and I'm really happy it's there. But I think my favorite memories a lot of the time from my entire involvement in StarCraft, despite attending like WCS and all these other things, are sometimes just hanging out around with a bunch of like coworkers or like people in school or whatever, and playing a bunch of games, just having like a nice community of StarCraft people. So I'm really, really grateful to not just like the organization for CEA and everything for putting this on, but for all the people who put in that little bit of extra work and message out, like create a mailing list at their company and say like, hey, we're recruiting for this and you should come play. And hey, you know what? I'll organize a bracket for some team in-houses and organize all these events. Big shout out to those people, because honestly, those are the people that really, really make this whole thing work and make it such an amazing experience for everyone. So thank you guys.
Yeah. All hearts and wholesomeness around here. They're even like asking if they want to play the ace matches just to like play games, which is really cool. But for Fear Dragon, that's kind of it for you. Want to give any shout outs last second?
Yeah, just shout out to CEA and also you for having me on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I thought you'd be a very like insightful person for this, and I was correct. So I'm glad you were available. And for everyone who is still in chats, I'm going to be doing a viewer day after this. So I'm just going to take a quick like 5-10 minute break, grab some alcoholis, and then come back and we can play viewer games and just kind of shoot the shit and be a little derpy. You're going to play some Jackbox games later on. So probably a lot of you are having Homestrike Cup up on the first monitor. Well, now move on to the second one. You can actually play StarCraft with other people. Who'd have thunk it? So yeah, guys, get ready for that. And I appreciate you all for sticking around. Make sure to check out CEA.gg if you're interested at all in what they're doing, or you have any inclination to actually participate in this stuff. And I'll see you guys in a few. Bye.